Do you want to create, multiply, and manage your wealth like multimillionaires and billionaires? In 2025, you can set up your own family office legacy wealth strategy in 45 days. Producers Wealth has open enrollment for their family office workshop, the Family Polaris. In the 6-week family office workshop, you will set up the 5 family office structure pillars. MC Lobsher and his team at Producers Wealth will walk you through setting up legacy assets like your family statement of purpose and your family constitution, legal, tax, and insurance structures to contractually multiply the family's wealth with every generation, your own family bank to finance everything your family needs, asset management strategies of billionaires and endowments, and how to establish your very own family mastermind. In 45 days, you will have your own family office structure in place if you join this program. The workshop includes curriculum, which consists out of video lessons, weekly live coaching Zoom calls, and community. You can be part of a community of like-minded families that want to live and leave a legacy for their families. You can apply to join the program at yourownfamilyoffice.ai. That's yourownfamilyoffice.ai. The world is going through changes. Changes happening at a speed that we have never seen before. This is leading to disruption, chaos, panic, fear, hysteria, and a turbulent economy and marketplace. How do you protect your wealth in a turbulent world? How do you invest for cash flow in alternative assets to escape the rat race in times of uncertainty? How do you decentralize yourself, your family, your community, your business, and your investments to become sovereign and escape the matrix? If you are looking for strategies, tactics, and techniques to escape the rat race and matrix, you are in the right place. My name is MC Lobsher, and this is Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Lobsher. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode and spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. We've got over 1,000 podcasts. We've got 4 books, reports, webinars, and much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the best newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. It goes out every single week. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. I've got a fantastic show for you today. I'm joined by entrepreneur and financial educator, Dave Lukas. Dave, great to see you.
MC, it's a pleasure to be on, and great to be on with everybody in the audience out there.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation. For my listeners and my viewers that's not familiar with you and what you do, can you please share a little bit about your background and journey with them?
How much time do we have? No, entrepreneur of been in the game a long time. Of built a number of companies over the years. Been fortunate to have some good exits and stuff along the way. Been on the Inc. 5000 list 6 times with those, maybe 7 here, coming up soon with the new one that we're working on. And I've also owned a financial education business for over 20 years. Selling options in the markets is what our focus is on. We've averaged over 90% win rates. We publish our trades going back to 2013, so you can see everything, transparency and all that. So, it made a lot of money as an entrepreneur and needed to figure out what to do with it, right? That's kind of how that stuff started to, come about. And then I also run a really popular podcast called the Misfit Entrepreneur. That's listened to in over 100 countries, and been doing that for almost 9 years now. So that's just a quick and dirty of it.
You've been involved in several businesses and have had several exits. So, I mean, there's so many topics that I want to jump into. But one of the things that I want to make sure that we touch on, in building your businesses and eventually exiting your businesses, What are some of the things that people should be thinking about when they start and set up their businesses, just from what you have experienced on an exit, of things that
Yeah.
perhaps you wish you did differently as you were doing the exit when you set up your businesses?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think people need to understand that the overwhelming majority of deals never go through. Okay, so it really it takes a lot to get to an end deal and a little bit of luck, in the end. The way that I've always approached things is that I run my business like I'm going to own it forever. I built it to be sold. So the most important thing that you got to think about from the beginning is your business has to be able to, it has to be a true business. It can't be a job that you've created for yourself that depends on you. And so that's your systems, that's your processes, like all the little things that you don't want to do, even as a solopreneur, or don't have quote unquote time to do, are the things that you need to do right and do well from the beginning. Documenting everything so it can be handed off, creating your, step-by-step processes for the different areas of the business so that somebody can follow it, training programs, like how you hire, what core values are, getting all that stuff right. And I recommend, I've implemented a number of times. I recommend EOS as a good system for that, the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's cookie cutter, and you can kind of take it and make it your own, but it's a good system structurally how to run a business to get everybody on the same page, get the basics right, make sure you're consistent, right? So that's a key thing, right? What does an acquirer want to buy? They want to buy an asset that they know will continue to grow and produce and has the run room into the future. So those are some of the main things you have to think about. No skeletons in the closet. Don't shy away from those. Get rid of those, get them fixed, get things taken care of, admit your flaws, and get that going. The other thing is, in today's day and age, things move pretty fast. Like I've always been, my company's mostly in the software space, right? And, the paradigm shifts pretty fast. So you have to build something that has a good moat. So you want to pick, something that really, an area that has a good niche and a good competitive advantage, obviously, out there. Now that sounds obvious, right? But you want to, believe it or not, some of the best softwares are in like industries that are archaic, that aren't moving very fast, right? That aren't, on the top of what AI is doing and changing. We just saw DeepSeek, quote unquote, change the game in the last week or so when it comes to AI, right? So some of the best businesses are just, you do something really, really well that's needed consistently, right? So you want to think about that. Recurring revenue is a key. If you want max dollar, right, you need to have a recurring revenue business. Those businesses are valued much differently than just like, an accounting firm or a mom and pop business or something like that, where you get a very small multiple of like EBITDA, or, even maybe a decent multiple of EBITDA. Recurring revenue businesses are valued on that ARR, right? So the total revenue and multiples of that. And so those are some key things to think about and how you set up your business. If you just sell a product, figure out how you can have something recurring to go along with it, to have that revenue that's consistent, that builds over time, that has more value to it. So there's a lot more that we could go into, but just off the top of my head, there's a few things.
Yeah, for our listeners and for our viewers, I went through a whole program called just exit planning, right, by the Exit Planning Institute. And basically, the philosophy is exactly what you just shared. Build your business and structure your business as if you were never going to sell it. Create an enterprise. But then you have an asset, an actual asset, which would be sellable and very attractive to a buyer down the line. So the goal isn't to start something that you hope that someone would sell. The goal is to start and build an actual asset and run it like you're going to own it forever, and your children's going to run it and their children. And then because you've set it up a certain way, and you've got a strategy in place, it becomes very, very attractive for people on the outside to eventually purchase it. I love that philosophy because some people might start a business and they never intend to sell it anyway, right? It's kind of like a legacy family business. But because you've set it up correctly, now the value is increased of the business, and it makes all the other things easier, the things that you don't think about, whether it's the collateral of the business, banking relationships, outside investors, access to capital, access to other markets, buying competitors, and more. So, Dave and I had a great conversation just offline connecting. So I wanted to share that with our listeners and viewers too,
Well,
because
one other,
yeah,
yeah, I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say one other point before you even get into that too. Um, why do people go into a business? Like, why do people want to do a business? In the end, like the goal is freedom, right? Control your time, control your income, control that. So your thoughts should be how you should build it so that you can extricate yourself from it. It shouldn't be, like I said before, a job you create for yourself that you're going to work 90 hours in the rest of your life. Like that's no fun. To create that, like you said, an asset, but something that you can step away and it continues to work for you, right? One thing that I've been sharing lately, and I've had him on my show, is a guy named John St. Pierre wrote a book called The $100 Million Journey. And I'm taking through the software company we're building right now. We're taking my leadership team, we're taking elements for that and using it. This is a guy who built a $50+ million business, but he didn't structure things right and actually got kicked out and the business got taken away from him. So he lost everything. And then he built another one and did it right. And that's what the whole book's about. So there's a lot of good lessons in there. So sorry, I know you're going to talk about that conversation we had. So go ahead.
No, that's valuable stuff right there. One of the things that you shared, which I don't think a lot of people know or are aware of, is that most businesses that list, people that actually want to sell, I believe it's 70% of businesses listed never sell. 30
Yeah.
only 30% of businesses go to your children, and then 15% to your grandchildren. So we live in a social media marketing world where that's what all the cool kids are doing right now. Look, it's easy. You just go buy businesses, and if you're a baby boomer, you just sell your business and make all this money. So I just wanted to kind of pour some cold water on this too, for people saying, look, that's not the reality. That's
Yeah.
advertising and marketing. You have to actually do certain things to make this work and end up being in the 30% of people that actually sell a business, which you're one of them, or the 30% of people that actually have a valuable asset to transfer to their children.
Yeah, I think you again. That's why you run it like you're going to own it forever, but you build it to be sold. You never know when the opportunity may arise, so you have to be ready, right? Um, I would say again as well. I mean, great legal. Make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. Make sure that you've got like your cap table as clean as possible. You don't want to dilute your equity. It is as much as and as tempting as it is for people or business owners, especially when they're getting started, to give away equity for this or that and that. Like you got to guard that. Like it is the golden goose. You have to guard that with everything possible. So, that's a key thing. But like I will say the best money I've ever spent was on the lawyers when we went to market to restructure the deal appropriately. Each time, as well as prep the company and make sure everything is all those ducks are in a row, because you just never know. Like there's so many things that can derail a deal. And a lot of it comes down in the legal process. And again, those skeletons in the closet that need to be found and fixed and stuff like that, right? Trademarking, making sure you got trademarks on all your, like your IP, all that stuff has to be taken care of. And then go to market with a good group that knows what they're doing to take you to market, right? There are groups that do that, right? And all the big players on Wall Street have that. They have their groups that'll take you to market and stuff, but there's smaller ones and stuff that do a really good job. They also help to prep the transactional side of the deal outside of legal to make sure that you're getting the best dollar and you're putting your best foot forward, how you approach the market, all of that stuff. Spending the money on that is probably some of the best money that you can spend as well too. So don't feel like you have to go it alone. And if you get an offer or you get something on the table, that's when you start, you should be talking to people or talking to groups ahead of that so they're ready, right?
Yep.
And then you can have them kind of work it from there. That's very beneficial because when you go to market or if you get into a sale type scenario, it is like having another full-time job. You will be working 2 full-time jobs, and it's 6 to 9 months. And again, the deal may fall through. So think about the time it takes you away from your business. So that it's worth it to have the help.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the latest venture that you're into. There's a lot of exciting stuff there,
Yeah.
software, and
Mhm.
yeah, what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I've been involved with this for a couple of years now. I took over as CEO last year. The company called Tax Plan IQ, and it's one of those things. It's hard to find a true win-win-win when it comes to any business, and I'll talk about that more in a second. But at the core of what our software does is it reads a tax return from a taxpayer, and it applies very specific logic to it to uh, point out what tax strategies you can apply to that 1040, that tax return, to save them the most in tax dollars. So imagine, being able to just upload your tax information, or your CPA upload your tax information, or your financial advisor into a platform, and then it spits out and says, if you apply these tax strategies to this, you could save 70,000 a year in taxes, right? Now, who wouldn't want that? Who doesn't want to save in taxes? I'm thinking you would too. So
Yeah, of
that's
course.
the beautiful thing about it, is that all this money that exists because our tax code's 90,000 pages long, that nobody knows that's available to them effectively, or just by things that they can apply to their tax situation, or how they do things in their business, or even their personal life throughout the year, can save them a lot in tax dollars. And so what we've done is we have taken that and effectively democratized it to where we've gone through with AI and a bunch of and actually spawned out of a CPA that did this manually years ago, is how the initial logic came about. And so it reads, and then we've got over 120 tax strategies we can apply. And so the average taxpayer, we saved over $1 billion in taxes for taxpayers. The average taxpayer saves over $40,000. That comes in the platform. Some way more than that. We've seen multi-million dollars saved. And so it's a fun place to be. And the client that we sell to are financial advisors, CPAs, those who use the tool on behalf of their clients. And you can think about why too in the end. Especially the CPA has to do the implementation with the client. They have to ensure that, obviously things get done throughout the year, because it's one thing to identify the savings. It's another thing to enact it. Right. And so the
Yep.
system tells you exactly what to do as a professional, exactly what to do at what times throughout the year. It creates a whole plan for you and basically tells you step by step how to do it. And then you work it. And so it's a beautiful thing, because taxpayers save more money. Professionals can be much more proactive with their clients. I don't know about you, but I've never had my CPA call me up in August and say, "Hey, I found a way to save you $70,000 this year, or 100,000, or whatever." Now they can, right? And it's just been a blast, and that's where the win-win-win comes in. The taxpayer wins, saving money in getting that back, right? The professional that's using it with the client wins, because they're able to create more revenue for their business, because they have to do more work to help make sure that savings is had. And a financial advisor, obviously, that frees up potential money to invest, help a client get to retirement faster, or maybe put their kid through school where they're maybe going to have to look at doing it with loans and stuff. Maybe there's all that opportunity, and then obviously we win because people utilize our software. So it's been a lot of fun, and we've doubled the company every year for 3 years, and it's continuing on, and it's now the largest in terms of number of clients in the space, and we'll probably more than double this year and keep going. And I don't even think we've scratched the surface of the market yet.
You know what I find interesting about your journey is there's certain things that I see in all like A players, people at the top of their game. They start a business, they generate income, and they're very good at doing so. And then there's a second element of like, okay, how do I make this capital that I've generated in my business? How do I position it to make it work? That's where a financial education company comes in. But
Yeah.
then there's also the tax element that, wait a second, if I do really well in my business and I make a lot of money and I position it correctly and I generate some cash flow and grow that money, what is going to
Mhm.
exponentially help this trajectory of this
Yeah.
capital growth? Well, paying less in taxes legally, right? In tax
Yep.
strategies. So it's like that three-legged stool of making money, keeping it and growing it, and then also reducing taxes, playing that great tax game, which it is. It's a
Well,
game with rules, and if you play it well, you get
yeah.
rewarded.
Well, and it's written for that too. It's just, again, and this isn't like the CPA, the professional's fault. Like, who has the time to really go through 90,000 pages of tax code to really figure out, the different strategies that exist, and then what applies to where and when the scenario shows up? Like, this software took about a decade to create, honestly. Right? You see the software now in the last, 3 or 4 years, but it's really what happened before that to get it to where it actually would work. Right? And so
Yep.
that's kind of the beauty of it. Remember, I talked about having something that's kind of in a niche that has got a moat around it. That's the moat, right? It's that logic behind the scenes of knowing which tax strategy to apply to what scenario, and the variables where maybe you have 2 tax strategies, but hey, if you do this one, it cancels out this one, so you got to apply it, and all that works behind the scenes. And that was the thing. It's been really fun to do this, and get into this, because like I was always the guy that went to my CPA and was like, hey, what about this? Can we try this tax strategy? Does this make sense for our situation? Like, I was the one always kind of bringing that, and then when I saw this software and the potential of it a few years back, I was like, oh my gosh, like it solves all these problems for everybody, right? And it's been amazing to learn, like, now doing it, right? These different tax strategies that exist, that are out there, that are like just low hanging fruit, like the Augusta rule. The Augusta rule is a rule to where you can rent your house out 2 weeks out of the year and collect revenue from, and not have any tax issues or ramifications from it. Right? That's because of Augusta National, the golf course, right, where they play the Masters. This rule was created, that applies to those guys because they rent their houses out for millions of dollars that are on the course. Like, there's all kinds of scenarios that people are out there that, can do that, and didn't even know. Maybe you've got an event that's in your town or whatever, right? You can do it 2 weeks a year, right? There's all kinds of these little strategies out there that just can make a huge difference, if you know about them and if you utilize them. So it's been really eye-opening, but it's also been a lot of fun too.
My new book, Get Wealthy for Sure, the #1 financial strategy for business owners to multiply wealth predictably, just hit #1 on Amazon. So Get Wealthy for Sure is an Amazon #1 bestseller. In this book, you'll learn the wealth building secrets that the ultra rich have used for over 170 years. You'll learn how to create your own banking system using a dividend paying whole life insurance policy, allowing you to finance your business growth, invest in lucrative opportunities, and build generational wealth, all tax free and protected from market volatility. You'll also learn the proven strategies used by icons like Walt Disney, the Rockefellers, and top CEOs to grow their empires and get wealthy for sure. You'll learn how to build a team of expert financial professionals, implement tax-efficient strategies, and protect your assets from creditors. You'll also learn the power of thinking like the wealthy and aligning your capital for maximum impact, so you can take control of your financial destiny. I also share a step-by-step aligned capital strategy that will guide you to a life of certainty, clarity, and predictability without falling victim to misinformation or settling for the status quo. If you want to get a free copy of my book, Get Wealthy for Sure, and only pay the shipping and handling, you could go to getwealthyforsure.com. That's getwealthyforsure.com. It's a massive pain point for a lot of people, and especially for high income earners. There comes a point on your journey when you're crushing and making a lot of money in your business, or as a high paying professional and successful professional, and this is something that is right there coming at you.
Like, here's a great example of that. I was just we just did the other day. Every month we highlight one of the strategies, and we typically have like partners in the strategies, right? Because some strategies are complex and they need people that are experts in them to help do. And so we actually had an oil and gas partner on the other day. And the oil and gas partners, if you know anything about oil and gas, there's some great tax benefits. In fact, you can write up to 90% of your investment off in the first year with oil and gas. Well, these guys have that, but then they pay a 12% royalty, a year on your money on top of that. So like, imagine being able to write, let's say you had a big transaction, right? You want to, you got made like 10 million bucks or whatever it is. You could throw $1 million in this, you get basically a 90% write-off, and you're getting a 12% return on it every year. Like, I mean, how nice is that, right? So there's all kinds of different ones out there, right? And some, have different rules, right? And that's kind of cool. The software can read your tax return and be able to say, hey, based on the rules, here's what applies to you, here's what doesn't, right? So
tell me a little bit about the financial education piece, because like I mentioned, the three pieces, but you're in business, you've got the financial education business, and then also it's interesting that you've connected the tax kind of strategies with the business that you're in now. So it's kind of like two in one. But tell me a little bit about the financial education company, when you started it, and you're doing some amazing work there.
So the company's called 12-Minute Trading. So 12, the number 12, minutetrading.com. And the name came about because back when I was, building my first couple of businesses, I was literally working 90-hour weeks. And all the weekends, everything, God bless my wife for putting up with it. Right. At the beginning, I started out living in my car. Like, I didn't have nothing. Right. But as we started to have success in this business and I started to get excess cash, then it became like, well, I need something to do with it. So I actually originally started investing in real estate, and I did pretty well. I was buying single family and duplexes and things like that, with cash flow. But, I was making, more than the mortgage payment and the costs on it and stuff, and getting the tax write-offs for it per year. Right. But it wasn't like going to pay the bills or anything like that. Right. And so I didn't want to put all my eggs in that basket. So I started looking at well, how can I take some of these things that I've learned about in real estate and apply them to the markets, right? And I found some unique things about the markets, right? First off, being in the real estate space, if let's just say a property is listed for $100,000, right? Everybody knows if a property is listed for $100,000, you're going to go in, depending on the market and what's going on out there, maybe you go in at 95,000, right? Because you're like, hey, if I can get a little bit below list, I want to do that, right? And you're working the numbers if it can cash flow and all that stuff at it. But and then you maybe haggle, maybe you settle at 97, right? That's your typical real estate transaction, right? Well, what I found was in the markets, it gets even better. And the way that I always put the analogy to it is what if you had that same $100,000 property, and you went to the owner of that property and you said, you know what? I'm going to pay you 20% less. I'm going to pay you $80,000 for it, and I want you to pay me $1,000 to buy it from you at $80,000. What would happen if in that scenario, if you went to a buyer and said that, or a seller, I should say?
Wouldn't go far.
They'd laugh you out of the room, right?
Yeah.
Well, in the markets, you can do that with a piece of market real estate, which is a stock or ETF, just by selling what's called a cash secured put. And so a cash secured put is basically where you go out. It's an option. And let's say you got a stock that's $100. You can sell a cash secured put at $80, and it has a value to it. Maybe it's $2, $3, whatever it is. And you're going to get paid to effectively buy those shares at $80, right, in the future, because options, they're time bound, right? So let's say I'm going out a month, right? So, you can do that and you get your stock at a cheaper price if and only if it's at $80 or below on that expiration date. So let's say the stock is at $90 on your expiration date. Well, guess what? You get to keep that money you were paid. You're freed from your obligation to buy it because it's not at $80. You turn around and do it all over again. That to me was just so eye-opening, right? And as I started to do more investigation, I started to look at what do most people do in the markets, right? They're taught, and the general wisdom is to buy stocks, buy a stock that you hope is going to go up, right? Well, hope isn't a strategy for anything. And the same with an option, buy a call, buy a put, and hope that it goes in, up or down, right? What most people don't realize is a stock, an index, can go one of three ways. It can go up, it can go down, or it can stay the same. So what is your chances, just straight out of the box, if you don't have any edge or just don't know what you're doing, you just go buy stocks, what are your chances of making money? It's 33%, right?
Yep.
It has to go up. Well, it can stay the same or it can go down. And so just to put that in perspective, the odds at a blackjack table in a casino in Vegas are 46.36%. You are literally better off going to a blackjack table. And so once I realized that, it was like, well, who has the 67% odds? Because that's who I want to be. And it's the sellers, right? The sellers do. And that's how I gravitated to selling options. That's all we do is really sell options and our strategies and everything. And we do, daily, weekly, monthly, a little bit longer term cash flow strategies, right? And so the whole idea is not big home runs, right? We're not after, 10,000% returns, because honestly, those don't exist as much as, people try to market them. It's more about base hit after base hit that adds up to those amounts over time. And so, we're after 2%, 3%, 4%, 6%, consistently over and over again, turning that velocity of money over and over, to do that. And that's what's allowed us to have really high win rates over the years and, craft really nice portfolios that generate 30, 40, 50% a year in what we do. So that's the strategies that we teach. And then our services, have our alerts around that, our education around it. We do a lot of education on market price action and all that stuff in there. So it's kind of designed for people that our goal is to teach you to do it on your own so that you can leave us and go, create your financial freedom. It's not something like at this point in my life, especially, that I have to do, right? I don't have to do it. I can just do my own thing and honestly build my businesses. But I really enjoy it because it's fun to watch people have real breakthroughs. So that's a little bit about what we do and how we do it.
It's interesting, a friend of mine, Doug Casey, and friend of the show, he has said several times to me that, exactly what you said is like, nobody makes money buying options.
Yeah.
In the stock market, it's the people that sell them. And that's one of his favorite cash flow strategies too.
Yeah.
And just generating income every month from his portfolio
Yep.
consistently with exactly this type of strategy. So it's a pretty powerful one. I also
and the whole
appreciate
point
you sharing
is
the
you
odds.
can do it in 10 to 12 minutes a day. Like, you don't have to spend hours upon hours on it. And that's the way we've kind of build our strategies to be more of like, spend a little bit of time, right? If you want to do it daily or once a week, we've got people that trade once every 6 months and make 20, 30% for themselves, right? So to me, it's always been about, it's not about time, right? I mean, I know people that work really, really hard for a lot of time and never get ahead, right? It's about, really working on the right things, right? That are the right vehicle to get yourself ahead. And it's about how you get your velocity of money, right? And so, for me, it's really like, I'll be honest, for all that I've done and that I do, I'm actually really quite lazy. I want to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time, right? And so I always design things so that, like, it was set up as a system that it worked for me, whether it was there or not. Even in trading, that's how it's set up. And so you could spend 10, 15 minutes on it and walk away for the day or once a week or whatever, and not have to sit there worrying about it, right? And to me, that's how it should be. That's how a business should be. That's how you should trade as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the world right now, we got a ton of stuff that's super interesting at the beginning of this year, globally, geopolitically, changes of administration in the U.S., AI, that's
Pick your
rolled
poison.
out as recording DeepSeek. It was the the big story this week.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're looking at just as a business person and as an investor that's interesting to you that you're keeping your eye on to just see how things develop?
Well, I mean, we'll start with AI because that's the kind of the big time that we're in now. We're in the age of AI and everything. So, DeepSeek was, I think the market, as we're doing this today, we're the day after the big NASDAQ correction of 3%, which is nothing in the context of a 20+% bull market for those of you that are are listening or watching, is the big news, and all of a sudden the market's rallying back today, right? So,
Yep.
so just a timeline a little bit on this. So, DeepSeek, basically at the end of January here, came out of China. So everybody knows about OpenAI and ChatGPT and everything else, right? Well, the reason like Nvidia and all these stocks, these chip makers and stuff, like Nvidia's up 160% in a year and all this stuff. The reason that these guys have been bid up so much to sky high nosebleed valuations is because the market, which is always forward looking, it's always pricing in the future, it was looking at it going, okay, well, there's this huge demand for chips and stuff that's going to be needed in the future to power this technology, right? It has an insatiable need for chips and energy. That's why you see a lot of nuclear and energy stocks going, up a lot and stuff, right? Because in order to power this new world, you need a ton of power, you need a ton of chips, and those chips have to keep getting better and better to process faster and keep up with the AI development, right? So, there's this like huge, kind of groupthink in the markets that, hey, these guys are going to be busy forever and they're going to keep selling. So, they're worth a ton of money in the future. We're going to bid them up that way. Well, supposedly DeepSeek created effectively a better chat GPT in like 3 months for less than $10 million using age-old chips compared to what is out there today, and only using 2 to 3% of the chips that like Chat GPT and OpenAI needs to do their business. That's what freaked everybody out. Now, again, this is out of China. This was actually done out of a hedge fund in China that did this as quote unquote a side project. I wouldn't be surprised if that hedge fund was shorting NVIDIA before they announced this. But that's a conversation for a different day. So what happened is like everybody freaks out. Oh my gosh, all these valuations are not right. Right? NVIDIA fell, whatever it was, 10+% in one day, right? It's not worth as much as we thought because they're not going to sell as many chips, blah, 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 right? Well, flip forward one day later, it looks like actually DeepSeek behind the scenes may have a lot of these chips that they're applying to this. And it's not, that they're doing it with a lot less chips. But right now, NVIDIA can't sell chips in China. And so, are they black market, that sort of thing. So that's the type of stuff that is going on, at this time, with the markets and everything with AI. AI in general will continue to progress. We've got it in our software. It's doing a fantastic job. It gets smarter every day. And so it's one of the things that I, in my annual message to listeners of the Misfit Entrepreneur Podcast, said that if you're not using AI, if you're not incorporating it into your world, you better get with it, because it is going to become more and more part of everyday life. It's another tool to use, right? That's what it is. It's a tool. And if you're not using it, I guarantee your competition is you're going to get passed up. So you need to find ways to incorporate it in your world. Is it going to take over and do everything for us to where we don't have to do anything? Not yet. Right? We got a long way to go for that. But it's definitely a tool that can help make a huge difference for your everyday life and business.
What are you seeing in the next year? We have a change of administration. Looks like a change in world order too. You're in the tax space. Do we see tax cuts? Do we see the extension of the previous tax cuts of the Trump administration when they were in office? What are some of the things that you're looking at?
Well, I mean, you have to. I think you have to give credit where credit's due. I think, we're recording this and we're a week into the Trump administration. And if you take an objective look at all the things accomplished and done, whether you agree with all of it or not, in the first week, it's pretty substantial, pretty amazing, what can be done in a week, right? And so the tax stuff's coming later this year. I don't know, what it'll end up being. I would expect that they're going to continue the current tax, they'll extend what the current tax setup is. They may bring down some business taxes a little bit. I would expect that they'll put in, the whole thing of for Trump to do what he needs to do, right? Because remember, we're at 37 trillion in debt. We're adding $1 trillion every 3 months or so, right? Yep. So this thing is a snowball that's just out of control, right? And Trump's partly to blame for that, as much as the rest of the presidents over the last however many years. But in order to really get a handle on that, yes, you got to cut government down to size so that government actually spends less than what it takes in, so you can kind of stop that snowball. And then at the same time, in order to get the revenues up, you got to create productivity. That's what drives revenues. Okay. And tax cuts do help because it puts more money in people's pocket. And when your economy is 70% consumer spending, the more money people have to spend, the more they get spent, the more that happens, right? The more things grow and that sort of thing. So that is the nice thing about that too, is you're not creating new money to do that. That's money that exists already. You're just leaving more in people's pockets, right? You're not printing more money. So
Yeah.
I think if we can get off the printing cycle of printing $2 trillion excess a year, right? And throw in that and give, people some more money in their pockets so that they can do what they want to do with it, which will create more commerce. And then, yes, get that investment to come into the United States. Trump's going to carry a big stick with that. Already seeing that. And that's, I don't think that's a bad thing in the end. I just think, that he's going to have to stick with it. He can't just be all talk or, all hat and no cattle with it, if you will. But he seems like the guy that'll do it. So he already got SoftBank to, come in with $500 billion. And so if you get a lot of companies to really come in, invest in here, build factories here, do that stuff, that's going to help with the productivity and stuff. So you could see, a much more increased GDP and stuff off that. Right. So it's the jury's out still. So far, it looks like he's moving along with the plan of the things he said he'd do on the campaign trail. And that's a good thing, right? Most politicians don't do what they say. So it's nice to see that. And market seems to like it so far, and the economy seems to be responding well to it so far. So we should come back on a year from now and see where we're at.
If you've been watching the news headlines, you know that the world's top CEOs, biggest investors, family offices, ultra affluent, and political elite are all moving to cash. Why? They're building up their war chest to go buy assets at a significant discount in the coming months. They are warehousing their capital in vehicles that have stood the test of time for 170 years, with institutions that have made good on their promises for 170 years. If you're interested to learn how to build your own banking system using the infinite banking concept, just like all of these parties, you can watch a presentation at yourownbankingsystem.com. That's yourownbankingsystem.com. So we mentioned AI. We've talked about taxes a little bit, potential tax cuts. What are some other opportunities that you're seeing ahead of us in this new year?
Well, I think AI brings a lot of opportunities, right? I think AI agents are going to become a much bigger thing. So if people don't know what agent is, it's basically taking, it's kind of creating a mini AI solution for a specific need, right? And so I think this is going to be the year where you see a lot of those initial AI agents coming out that do specific tasks, right? Repetitive and stuff, and take that off people's plates to help with efficiency, right? You're going to see more of that. In fact, you'll be able to build your own AI agents for things and stuff like that, right? So there's, areas of your life where I think that'll apply, and we'll see how that goes, right? There's a lot happening in robotics, right? There's a ton happening in the robotics sector, right? We've already seen like what Elon Musk is doing and that stuff, but I think you're going to see some big jumps into actually, seeing some of this robotics come into play more. The automation, right? That's, going to be here as well. All of that does give opportunity, right? So there's industries that where jobs are going to be lost. There's industries where jobs are going to be gained. It's, so you have to look at like, where can I be to where that opportunity is and be a part of that? I think you constantly have to be looking at that. Things move much faster now, right? Yep. And, we saw this even in the markets. Like when I first started trading, there was one option cycle once a month. Now we have daily options, like every single day, right? And they're talking about doing half-day options and like 24/7 trading. Like things are moving much, much faster, and just the world's going like that, right? So that happens with industries as well. A perfect example is DeepSeek and OpenAI over a span of 3 days, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, it's hard to know if that's real or not yet. But that will happen. I mean, there's nothing like Moore's law is how fast chips are obsolete and you need new chips, right? And how fast technology doubles, right? Well, think about the age of AI. AI, like there's gonna be another Chat GPT that comes about that's even better, faster, cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to happen not inside China, maybe in the US or whatever. So like this stuff's going to move faster. And so you just have to be prepared for a faster world. I don't think people are ready so much for that. And so do your homework, read up on this stuff, stay up on it. You know, go ask, there's some good tools out there to teach you. One of them that we use is I'll pull it up. It's a company called Simple AI. And we have our staff and everything that goes through the courses there to just keep up on AI and everything. There's just different ones like that are already out there. So yeah, do your best to stay up on it all.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is going to be so disruptive. So I always look at this and be like, how do I position myself in this disruption to be on the right side and not
You're
get
at the very
rug pulled?
beginning of it too.
Yeah, we're so in the beginning. So yeah, I mean, if you are not embracing this as a tool and using it already, we're using it in a ton of different ways already with our businesses. My one company, Producers Wealth, we just added a atlas, as we call them, bot on our website that jumps up, and if somebody comes to the website, Atlas asks you any questions for our team and how can we help you, and it interacts with you and eventually directs you where you need to go and even books a call with you. So this stuff is not, it's not something that we cannot learn. Every single person listening to this and watching this, you can figure this out and learn this. It's not that hard. And we're just scratching the surface and in the beginning, as you said.
Personally, I think we're going to hit AGI a lot faster than anybody expects. So AGI is artificial general intelligence. That means like on par with a human, right?
Yep.
That's where things get really serious, right? And I think we're going to hit it faster than people thought, right? We're already kind of into the teenager state with like ChatGPT and stuff. So again, back to that, how fast it compounds. That thing's learning every second. It's building on itself and getting better. It never sleeps. It never stops. Right. So, I would not be surprised to see the first instance of like AGI within the next 18 to 24 months. And then it gets even weirder from there, because up from there's ASI, which is artificial super intelligence, right? And it's working, never sleeps, doubles, like so it's once you get to AGI, how fast you get to ASI, and at that point, like it's you get into they've been making movies forever about all the different stuff that can happen, right? So let's just hope that they've at least put enough guardrails into these things that they are not malevolent or malevolent, more benign in how they act. So yeah,
absolutely. Now, I always ask my first-time guests. We talk a lot about business. We talk about investing, cash flow, money on the show, but I always ask, if you cannot pass on any money to future generations and you are only allowed to pass on 3 principles or values to them to help them achieve success and build wealth, what would they be?
Well, these have, it's interesting. I ask a similar question on my show, and these have changed a little bit over the years, right? So I think the first one is understand that you are a product of the conditioning that you have gotten since the time you were born, right? So your path was not set, right? So you came out, it's not like you came out of the womb and said, hey, beautiful baby MC, you're just is what you're destined. This is what it's going to be. And this is exactly what your life's going to be and how it's going to go. And you're only going to make X amount. And that's the way it's going to be. Right. We're a product of all these influences from the time we're born. And a lot of the things, I mean, parents, friends, family, media, culture, school, religion, all these things. And most of what we pick up is really good. But there are some things that we pick up that can be debilitating to our success. And so I think where the catalyst for change is the awareness that we don't have to accept all those things, and we can actually choose. It is important for us to be able to recognize those and be able to ask ourselves, hey, is this something I choose to have, or is this something I did not? And choose the thought, the habit, the thing that you want to have in your life. That's really the ultimate in personal power, right? So that's the first one. Start examining and just taking stock of your thoughts, and look at how you might change some of them, or your way of approaching the world to, help you better align to what's possible for you. It's the first one. The second one is that there are very few things that really matter in the end, right? And there are certain friends, there are definitely family, there are experiences, there are minutes that truly are the most important things. And so make sure you wake up every day and you ask yourself, like, what really truly matters, right? And where you're going to put your time, your energy, your emotion, and anything into every day. Because very little in the end is, if in the end, all I can say is that I was able to spend more time with my wife and daughter, and be able to have wonderful experiences that will last through the rest of their lives, whether I'm here or not. And, did that to the best of my ability, then I'm good. You know what I mean? So just decide for yourself what truly matters. And the last one I would say is that I think you hear people tell you, find your passion, find your purpose, and it's like, it's cliche and all that stuff. I think a lot of times that purpose and that passion can be nice, but it's more of a hobby. I think you really got to you got to ask yourself what you truly want. Like, most people never take a Friday and just sit there for a day and say, like, what do I want? List that out. Why do I want it? Why did I give that answer? And get really, really deep to them. Most people don't get what they want because they don't know what they want. And so finding true clarity on really what it is that you want out of your life, your relationships, your wealth, your health, and all that stuff is probably one of the best exercises that you can do. It'll help even with, where you spend your time and everything too, for what really matters. But, most people never take the time to do that, and they don't really know. And so if you've never done that, I would say just take a day, tune out everything, no phone, none of that stuff. Get a notebook and a pen or a pencil, and just start writing and figure that out. It's be one of the best exercises you've ever done. And the last thing, just add a bonus for you, your health is probably one of the most important things. I've been fortunate to be ranked top, 2% or so in Ironman in the world, and train for that and go to the championships for, a number of times and everything. And all I can say is that as you get older, your health matters really a lot. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself as best you can, because that will actually help you in your entrepreneur life, your business life, your regular life, all that stuff as well too. So health is wealth in its own way.
Awesome. Dave, where can folks learn more about you? Where can they follow you, and where can they stay in touch, and just see all the many different things that you're involved with and all the projects?
Well, it's, really three sites, right? So if you're interested in the trading side, 12minutetrading.com, 12minutetrading.com, misfitentrepreneur.com, or on anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you'll find it. That's the podcast. And then taxplaniq.com is the name of the software company where we're doing all the fun stuff, saving people on taxes, all that. So you can get you links to all that stuff. And, for anybody that's interested in the trading, we do a 2-week free trial. We can get you as well, too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey and your knowledge and providing so much value for all of my listeners and viewers.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, all of you, for watching and listening.
And thank you to all of my listeners and viewers for, again, spending the most valuable resource, your time, with me on the show, Everything Cashflow Ninja. is at cashflowninja.com. We've got over 1,000 podcasts. We've got 4 books, reports, webinars, and much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the best newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. Until next time, live infinitely. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.